Hey there, welcome back. In case we haven't met yet, my name is B and I love to code the heck out of Squarespace and teach other designers how to do it too. Today's customization is a really useful one if you're working with a shop page in Squarespace. We're going to be looking at how we can move an accordion block with FAQs or any other information that you may have into the actual details section of a product page. Now, this customization is going to work whether you're using Squarespace 7.0 or Squarespace 7.1. However, keep in mind that the CSS is going to vary a little bit depending on the version that you're working with, so make sure to check out the timestamps to know what code you need to use for each of those versions. So, without further ado, if you're ready to learn how to make this happen for your current client project or any other project that you have in the future, make sure to keep on watching. Alrighty, so here I am in Squarespace 7.1 and I'll be applying the same customization to Squarespace 7.0 as well, which is going to be very similar to what we're going to be doing here. It's just that the CSS is going to vary a little bit for 7.0. So let's go ahead and get started here. What you need to have in place is a product page, and then you need to have an accordion block within the additional information section. So just in case you don't know where that is, if you go into Edit Product, and then click here where it says additional info. In here, you're going to be able to add any other information that you want for your product. And here is where you need to add the accordion block. Now, it doesn't necessarily need to be at the very top of the content that you have in here, but it's just easier to have it there so that you don't have any extra space that you need to get rid of once the accordion gets taken out from here. So I'm going to go ahead and click here on apply and save. And then what we're going to do is we're going to jump onto the code injection section to be able to add the script that is going to basically cut the accordion block from where it is right now and then place it within the actual description part of our product page. So let's go ahead and click here on settings, advanced, and code injection. And keep in mind that for this customization, regardless of if you're working with 7.1 or 7.0, you're going to need to have your jQuery library embedded on the site. So if you don't have a code that looks like this or something similar that sometimes says ajax.googleappy, if you don't have that already on your site, then make sure to grab this little snippet from the blog post. All right, so once you have that in place, what we need to do in here is create our little function. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell our browser to look for the accordion item that is located within that additional information section in product pages, and then grab it from there and paste it somewhere where we want within this product description section. So basically what we need to find first is a way to target these particular accordion blocks because these are the only ones that we want to move. If we have other accordion blocks on the site, we don't really want the script to look for them. We just want to make sure that it finds these particular ones within the additional information section of product pages. So let's go ahead and take a look and see how we can narrow things down for our script and in turn for our browser. So if we take a look in here, you're going to see that we have this big section container that is pretty much holding all of the content that we have inside our product page. So if we open this up, we're going to see the section border container and the content wrapper as we do with pretty much any other section in 7.1. If we look within the content wrapper one, we can see that we have a very general content container. And then within this, things start getting a little bit more specific for product pages. So here we have another section, and then here we have an article container, and then we have a nav container, which is holding the little breadcrumbs that we have here at the top. And then we have a section that's called product item summary. And we have another section called product item additional. So you can see that if I stand over this particular element that we have in here, this section element, you can see how only the additional information part of the page gets highlighted. So this is something that seems to be very specific for product items for the additional section. And it's a class that we can use inside our script to be able to narrow things down for our browser. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for a class to target that particular accordion block because we don't want to move everything. We just want to move the accordion block. So we're going to go ahead and look for that. You can see here that I just landed on the accordion block. This is a text block, and then down here we just have other bunch of stuff. But this one is the one that we're interested in, the accordion block. You can see how it has a class of accordion block very appropriately. So we're going to be targeting the accordion block within this container that's called product item additional. So that's how we're going to be building our selector to make sure that we're only selecting the accordion blocks within the additional information section of product pages. So let's go ahead and set that up in here in our little script. I'm going to go ahead and start with my script tags, and we're going to be creating a function that is going to run when all of the content of the page is loaded. And then in here, what we're going to do is we're going to look for that accordion block. So accordion block. But like I said, we don't want to look for accordion blocks across the entire site. We just want to look for them when they're within this particular section of the site. So let's go ahead and grab that class of product item additional, and we're going to add it in here. Just as if we were writing CSS, we're creating a selector that looks very similar to what we would do in CSS. It's just that we're using it inside a script. So now that we're targeting accordion blocks within this particular section of product pages, we can go ahead and move on to the next part of the function, which is going to be telling our browser where we want to now stick this accordion block once it grabs it. So now what we need to do is look for something in here inside the sort of detail section of the product page that is going to help us point to that location where we want that accordion block to be. So let's go ahead and take a look here and see what we can find. All right, so let's go ahead and shrink things down here. Okay, perfect. So this container is holding all of the additional information. And this other container up here, you can see how it's called product item summary, and it seems to be holding the thumbnail area and this description area. So let's go ahead and take a deeper look in here. Here we have a container that is holding the thumbnail, and then we have another container that is holding the details of this product. So if we open this up, let's see what else we can find. Here we have the H1 element, and then we have another container that seems to be holding a couple of things. So let's go ahead and open this one up. And this one seems to be holding the price for the product, the excerpt for the product, and the button for the product. So what I think I'm going to do here is use this add to cart button as the indicator for the location where I want that accordion block to sit in. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the class of the add to cart button in here, the add to cart button container. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using the insert before function so that I'm going to grab that accordion block and then I'm going to insert it before whatever it is that I'm targeting inside the section, which is going to be my add to cart button. So let's go ahead and build that here. Insert before. And then in between quotes, we just simply need to add the selector for the thing that is going to be sort of that pin inside the map of the HTML that we have in here that is going to help the browser know where we want that accordion block to be. So now that we have all of this in place, I can go ahead and save this. And you're going to see that upon refresh, now we have the accordion block embedded right before the add to cart button. All right, so now that we have everything in place, all we need to do is just go into our custom CSS window and style things a little bit more. So here, let's go ahead and see what is going on because I can see that there's like a little bit of lack of space in here. So let's go ahead and see how we can fix that. If we take a look now at the HTML, you're going to see that within the same container that we were looking at before, now we have the price, the excerpt, the accordion block, which is no longer inside the additional product area, but is now within this detail area of the product page. And then we have the add to cart button. So what we could do is now target that accordion block within this new area of the product pages, and then maybe add a little bit of margin to the bottom to be able to separate it a little bit from this add to cart button that we have down here. So I'm going to be targeting accordion blocks within this particular part of the page, which is called product item details checkout. So let's go ahead and grab that class. And we're going to target the accordion blocks within those specific sections because I don't want to alter the bottom margin of any other accordion block that I have on the page. I only want to edit that for the accordion blocks that have been moved through the script to this area of product pages. So now that I have that very specific in there, I'm going to go ahead and add a margin at the bottom of my choice. So let's do maybe like 50 pixels. I think that looks pretty good. It kind of matches the space that I have up here, so I think I'm gonna keep that number. All right, and now you can see how we have the accordion block all the way up here. It looks great, and it's time to check out mobile. So if I look here in the mobile view, you're going to see how things shifted a little bit. The accordion block is still here, but now is no longer sitting on top of the add to cart button, and the price is all the way down here, and the excerpt is all the way down here. Now, these things didn't really get affected by the fact that the accordion block is up here. There's actually a little bit of CSS that Squarespace is using to be able to reposition these elements when we're on mobile. So if you don't like the look, if you don't like the layout that Squarespace creates here for you automatically, then what we can do is use a little bit of CSS to be able to reorder things very quickly. So let me show you what that would look like. Here, if we take another look at the same section that we've been looking at, you can see that we have the price, but notice where it's being highlighted in here. You can see how in the HTML it's the first thing we have, but inside the actual page, we don't really see it at the beginning. So we have the product price here, then we have the excerpt down here, then we have the accordion block, and then we have the add to cart button. So you can see that even when the things inside the HTML are still in the exact same place as they are on desktop, on the screen, they've changed their position. And that is because Squarespace is using a little bit of Flexbox to be able to reorder these items. Now, luckily, this is something that is very easy to fix. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we can do that. You're going to notice that if I stand over any of these elements that we have here, the button, the excerpt, and the product price, there is a property called order that has been set and has a particular number. So that order property is a Flexbox property that allows us to decide where in the stacking order these elements should appear. So you can see that, for example, for the product price, we have an order of 1, and then for the excerpt, we have here an order of 5, and then the accordion block doesn't really have anything because we have not applied that to it, and then the button here has an order of 4. So the thing is that these values go in order. So this one would be the first thing because it has an order of 1, and then the next one, there's no 2, there's no 3, but there is a 4, which is, the button here. So you can see how we have 1, 4, and then the excerpt, which is order of 5, is sitting below here. So we have 1, 4, and 5. So what we can do is give a different order to each of the elements depending on how you want to rearrange them, or just simply modify the ones that we want to reposition in order to match the same layout that we have on desktop. In my case, what I'm going to do is only target the things that I want to move because I want the other ones to stay where they are. So I want the price to still be the first thing. I want the excerpt to be the second thing. So I definitely need to change the order of this one. I need to set it to 2. And then I need to give the accordion block an order of 3. And then because the button already has an order of 4, then it's going to stay in a place. And then I'm going to have the same layout that I have on desktop. So I'm going to go ahead and start by moving the excerpt. Now, for the excerpt, I could just grab this class that we have here in order to target it via CSS. But the thing is that Squarespace is already using another selector to be able to set the original order of 5. So you can see down here that Squarespace is not only using that specific class that this element has, but it's also including another one. So what I'm going to do is reuse the snippet that Squarespace is using so that I don't have to use any unnecessary importance in here in order to force my value. So I'm going to grab that, paste it in here. And now I'm going to set that excerpt to an order of 2. And you're going to see that by doing that, now the excerpt has shifted a little bit upwards and it's now sitting underneath the first element, which is the price. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to target the accordion block. But again, I don't want to target the accordion block that is across the entire site. I want to target this particular one that is sitting within the detail area of the product pages. So I already have that selector up here. I'm already targeting that type of accordion block in here. So it's just a matter of adding the order property to that same snippet and then setting this to 3. So now you can see how we have the order 1 element up here. the excerpt, which now has an order of 2, and then my accordion block, which has an order of 3. Now, in this particular case, we don't really need to use a media query to be able to set these new orders. First, because that's the same order that we want to keep on desktop. And second, because Squarespace is only modifying the order of these elements on mobile. So even if we keep these properties here on desktop, it's not really going to do anything. So we're going to go ahead and leave the code as it is because we don't really need to make it more specific than that. And just like that, you can see how you can have your accordion block within the detail area of product pages. Now, if you want to style this a little bit further, because for example, you don't like the space here or the space here, then you can go ahead and just keep styling as usual with CSS. So let's just go ahead and modify that spacing very quickly there. So here you can see that there's a little bit of margin underneath the price. So that's definitely something that we could get rid of. And then if we check the excerpt, you can see how this one also has a little bit of margin at the bottom. So let's go ahead and modify that. If we take a look here on the right side for the price, you can see how there's already a snippet, a selector here that Squarespace is using to set that margin at the bottom. So let's go ahead and reuse that same snippet. And maybe set the margin at the bottom to 0 because I don't really want to have anything extra there. There we go. That shrunk down that spacing there. And now let's do the same thing for the excerpt. So here, if we take a look at this container, again, just looking at the right side to see where the margin has been added. So here we can see it underneath this little snippet. We can go ahead and grab that. We can actually group these two things together because we're going to be applying the same property here in the same value. So now you can see that I just reduced the space in between the excerpt and the accordion block. So now if we take a look here on desktop, I feel like the spacing is not that bad. Maybe I can reduce the margin at the bottom here so that everything's a little bit more even. Something like that. That looks pretty good. But of course, if you only want to make modifications to the space for things on mobile, then what you can do is just include a media query around this snippet that we have in here. I'm going to keep it as it is because I like the layout, but again, just in case, you can wrap a media query around this snippet if you want to modify the margin at the bottom of the price and the excerpt only on mobile. Now let's go ahead and move on to 7.0. So for 7.0, the process is going to be pretty much the same thing. You can see how here I have a product page and then I have the description and I have an accordion block that I have added to the additional information section of the product. So this is the same place as I added the accordion block for 7.1. So if you go in here in additional info, you can see how I have my accordion block in here and just a bunch of content. Like I said before, it doesn't really matter if the accordion block is at the top of the section or not. I'd just rather keep it here because it's just easier not to have to deal with any extra space after we take out this accordion block with the script. So I'm going to apply this and save. And then basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to be adding the script. So I already explained how the script works in the 7.1 part. So if you're interested in understanding what the script is doing, go ahead and check that part out and then come back to this. I'm just going to go ahead and grab the snippet from my settings, advanced, and code injection section in 7.1. And I'm going to just add this inside the same section in here in 7.0. So like I said last time, keep in mind that this snippet is going to require you to have the jQuery library on your site. So if you don't have this little script already implemented or something similar that may say something like ajax.googleappy, then make sure to grab this little script from the blog post. All right, and with the script in place, we can go ahead and save this. And now you're going to notice that the accordion block has been added to the description area of our product page. Now, it's not really in the place where I want it to be, so I'm going to do the same thing that I did for 7.1, and I'm going to use a little bit of CSS to modify things here. So let's go ahead and take a look at what is going on first, and then we'll go ahead and handle the CSS. So if we take a look here at the whole section, you can see how all of the content for this product page is within one of these containers. I mean, there are a bunch of them, but you can see how this one is called main content, and then within this one's called article, which is the product item itself. Then we have the breadcrumbs all the way up here, and then we have another container called product item summary. And then down here we have product item additional, where the accordion block was previously in. So if we take a look at product item summary, where the accordion block is now located, and we open this up, we can see that there is a section here called product item details, and this one is actually showing up only on mobile. So right now we can't really see it if we highlight it in here. And then we have product item gallery, which we can't see. This is just the area holding the thumbnail. And we have this other one called product item details. If we open this one up, we can see a couple of things. We see the H1, the product price, the product item details excerpt, the accordion block, and the add to cart button. But you're going to notice that same thing as it happened with 7.1 before. We have a bunch of things in here, but they're not necessarily showing up on the screen in the same order that they are in here in the HTML. And that is because there's some CSS applied to it that Squarespace is using to be able to reposition those elements inside this section. So what we can do here is use that to our advantage to be able to place that accordion item or accordion block where we actually want it to sit in, which in my particular case, I just want this to sit right before the add to cart button. So if we take another look at the different elements that we have in here, you're going to notice that all of them have an order property applied. So the order property, as I mentioned before, is a flexbox property that allows us to reposition elements that are sitting within a flex container, which is exactly what is going on in here. So you can see how the product title has an order of 1, and then product price has an order of 3, and then product details or the excerpt has an order of 4. So we have 1, 3, 4. The 2 is not really there. It doesn't really matter if there isn't a 2 or if there is a 2. You can see how we still have things in ascending order. So we have the excerpt, and then we have the accordion block, which we haven't added an order to. So that's why it's sitting all the way at the top. And then we have the add to cart button, which has an order of 7. So what we can do here to be able to place this accordion block before the add to cart is to basically just give this an order that is going to be bigger than the excerpt so that it sits below it, but smaller than the add to cart button so that it can sit above it. So what we can do, looking at the order here, this one is order of 7. This one is order of 4. So basically for the accordion block, we could use either 5 or 6, and the accordion block is going to be able to sit within the excerpt and the add to cart button. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to grab the class of accordion block because this is going to be the class for this target container. But then we need to include a class that is going to refer to the accordion blocks that are sitting within this particular section of product pages. So if we take a look up here, we can see that this product item details container has a class, or this particular class that it carries is pretty specific for the detail section of product pages. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that, and I'm going to target the accordion blocks sitting within this type of section. So let's go ahead and go into Design and Custom CSS. And I'm going to target my accordion blocks. And now I can just give this an order, let's say, of 5. And once I do that, you can see how everything reorganizes in here. And now we have our accordion item sitting below the excerpt, but on top of the add to cart button. So now that we're done with desktop, let's go ahead and check out mobile. So here on tablets, we still have everything looking the same way. And then here on mobile, you can see how everything stays in the same place. We have the price here, we have the excerpt here, we have the accordion block, and then we have the add to cart button. Alrighty, and there you have it. That's how you can move the accordion block into the product details area of product pages. If you found this tutorial helpful, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out on other customizations just like this one, and I will see you next time.